losing, of course, to Barcelona in the Supercopa and now to Albacete. Much lower opposition in the Copa del Rey. It means Albacete advanced to the Copa quarter-finals for the second time and first since 94-95. Real Madrid eliminated by lower league opposition for the first time since the 2021 season. That was against Alcoyano. And then Albacete, a 17th in the second division, 1 point above the relegation zone. Alex Kirkland, our Madrid correspondent here. This is a disaster for Real Madrid, Alex.
Yeah, it's the worst possible start for Arbeloa. This defeat, it isn't on him. Yeah, it's not entirely his fault. He literally took over yesterday, took his first training session yesterday, had his first press conference yesterday. But I mean, he was saying in his press conference just now, he tried to take responsibility. He said, this is on me. I'm the coach. I picked the squad. I picked the team. I made the decisions. But watching the team tonight, this still looked like the same Real Madrid team. Of course it did. It's been no time at all for Arbeloa to kind of get his ideas across or really make any changes. And so there were sort of familiar flaws for this Real Madrid team tonight in terms of no real clear idea of how they want to play, difficulty creating chances. Dodgy at the back as well. The one thing I think you can lay on Arbeloa, and again, he took responsibility for this in his press conference just now, is the team selection. They left out a number of players, rested a number of big names for one reason or another, some minor knocks and injuries. This was a team, without Mbappe and Bellingham and Rodrigo and Courtois and no Carreras. Other players who are injured like Militao, Antonio Rudiger. Arbeloa brought in some youngsters from the reserve team, Castilla, who he's been coaching and he knows well. Some of them did okay. Others not so much. So I think, you can blame Arbeloa in terms of, like I say, the selection of the squad, the selection of the team. But we know that Real Madrid's problems go much deeper and go much further back than a coach who literally took over 24 hours ago.
Yeah, as Alex said, Arbeloa did say that afterwards for his team selection, but even that team should have been beaten Albacete, Ale.
Yeah, but Arbeloa himself, also in the same press conference and in the same answer, he said, well, the issues of us playing against lower opposition teams, as we saw against Talavera, how difficult that was. So he knew this was going to be difficult. And I'm not suggesting that this team that we just showed there shouldn't be better than Albacete and they shouldn't beat Albacete. Of course they should. Of course they should. That goes without saying. But if it is your first game with this team, you are taking over the team, it's not only about the results, but also about the messages that you're sending to your now players. These players now are yours. And so while you may think, okay, we're going to rest some players, rest them, but take them on the trip. Put them on the bench, because this is the bench that was available to Real Madrid today. So when the game was getting out of control and you need some help, you're not turning to Manuel Ángel, Sergio Mestre, Joan Martinez, who, Cesar Palacio, what? Right? So that you have options. But most of all is the message that you're sending to the players. You just lost a final in the Supercopa de España. Right? And I understand that you want to give a rest to certain players. Give them the rest, but have them there. You need unity. You need this team to be together, not some guys in Madrid and other guys over here. If you're looking for unity, that doesn't happen if those guys are over there and these guys are over here trying to get a result at Albacete. You want to bring the group together, and you want to have options on the bench just in case things get complicated, which they have had a tendency to be so for Real Madrid this whole season, including the last round against Talavera, which he referenced. If he knew this was going to be tricky, if he knew this was going to be difficult, then you need whatever squad you had available, you need that full squad ready for you just in case things got, as he thought they would, complicated and tricky.
Do you agree with Ale?
I do agree 100%. I understand you rest Mbappe. After that, I think you get your first team on the field. The only way you get better is by playing through it. And then you also have to get everybody together. As Ali said, even if you're not playing everybody, you still have you have to get the group playing as one. Regardless of the star names, whatever it is, a group of players, when they step on the field, regardless of the opposition, have to play together and for each other. And that didn't happen tonight, that's for sure. And that kind of tells you that the whole dressing room isn't playing together or for each other. But you have to win the game. And to win the game, play your players, except Mbappe, win the game, and then you take them off. Then you can make 5 changes. But don't do it the other way around and then not bring them. And then when you need help, you don't have any help either. So, Arbeloa's got it wrong. But at the end of the day, any Real Madrid team that steps on the field against Albacete, who are struggling in the second division, should be winning.
So what are they going to do now, Alex? There's got to be some damage limitation. Obviously, there's still 2 cups to play for in the Champions League in La Liga, where they are trailing to Barcelona. What happens next?
Well, the big question, I think, is how the Bernabeu crowd responds to the team on Saturday. They're back in action in La Liga on Saturday against Levante. In theory, a very winnable game at home. But we've heard whistles from the crowd at the Bernabeu in the last few weeks for Xabi Alonso's team. That was part of the sort of deteriorating kind of situation around him that ended in him losing his job. How will the crowd react to this team now, having just lost the Supercopa final, knocked out of the Copa del Rey? There was some sort of disagreement and debate about those previous whistles. Were they aimed at the players? Were they aimed at the manager? It's really the players in the spotlight now, because the manager's gone. He's out. Alvaro Arbeloa has come in. The players are in the spotlight now, and of course, the boss, the president Florentino Perez as well, who's made the decision to sack Xabi Alonso, despite the sort of presentation of that as being by mutual agreement, and bring in Arbeloa. And this first game has been a disaster. So I think it's going to be really interesting how the crowd reacts on Saturday and how the team play. And yeah, Arbeloa, again, just has a couple of training sessions before that game. Not much time. Let's see how many of those players who've been rested tonight are rested sufficiently to come back in for that game. Quite a few of them, I think will be. And what will we see? Will we see radical changes in terms of the team's shape, the team's selection, the style? Will we see improvements? Will it be more of the same? Because I think part of the thinking in terms of getting rid of Alonso was that we've still got all these trophies up for grabs. We've still got La Liga, Champions League, Copa del Rey. Well, one of those is gone now, and so now it's only 2 left. And yet in the league title race, they can't afford to drop many more points, because Barcelona, could be before too long out of reach.
As we all know, one chance to make the first impression, and this was the first impression. It's Arbeloa standing by himself in the silence, watching his team lose to Albacete. That lingers. This job for Real Madrid is difficult in the best of circumstances. You make it harder for yourself by the decisions that you made in keeping some of these players out. And now you are going into this first match against Levante at Santiago Bernabeu, a match that you should win, but you are already playing with essentially a handicap. You're already trailing in the perception of the fans. You haven't even shown up to the stadium, and you're already trailing. And that's no way to start your cycle with Real Madrid. Again, I thought that the most important game of the season for Alvaro Arbeloa would be tonight. Tonight. Never mind the trophies that were available or not available, or what they're competing for or not competing for. Tonight was the most important game. And tonight, they failed. So the first impression that we get from Arbeloa is a failure. And it's a massive failure. Real Madrid fans and supporters may say, well, it's only Copa del Rey. Well, I can tell you the same thing and say, it's only Albacete. And you lost to Albacete. It's a failure for Arbeloa. It's a failure for this club. How you manufacture momentum, positive momentum going forward, is by winning. He said that failure, the road to victory, or something like failures lead to victories. No, about victories lead to victories. About you win. Don't get philosophical on me. Don't get philosophical. Win matches, and then we can build momentum going forward.
And you can point to it and say, well, Xabi Alonso wasn't the problem here then.
No, I think he's definitely was part of the problem.
But not the whole problem.
Oh no, not at all. And listen, if I was to say anything to Arbeloa, I would say, forget about the tactical side of the game. Get the team together. Bring the team together. And then you can start working on other things. Because if the team isn't playing for each other, then all the tactics in the world isn't going to cut it when it comes to the important moments in a game, when the extra yard needs to be run, or when somebody needs to cover their mate. It's about togetherness. You can have average players, but if they're together, they become hard to beat. They get on a run winning games. They're running for each other. I mean, I can't. You should never underestimate the importance of one unit and everybody together. And if you've got the ability that Real Madrid have, if you can get them all together, that ability will start flourishing, and we'll see all of that. So if I'm Arbeloa, I wouldn't get carried away with all this, try to change tactics and try to look different. Win the game.
He doesn't
Win
he
the
don't-
game.
And Stevie, he doesn't have the time to be focusing on tactics. The game is Saturday.
What will those bigger players that were not taken be thinking here? What do you think?
I'm glad they never went.
Would they be okay to have been left out of this game?
Well, I hope not. I hope not, but I don't know. I don't know. Does it hurt? I don't know. And I think there's a question that perhaps the Real Madrid fans are asking themselves. Does it really hurt? Does it hurt that you're out of the Copa del Rey against Albacete? It should. It certainly should, particularly when you lost on the weekend against Barcelona in a final. You would think that the first priority would be, we have to win. We have to win. We have to build momentum. We just lost a trophy. We have to win. And yet that didn't seem to be the case today.
How many do you think are looking in the mirror blaming themselves?
That's
And
none.
and just to further the point, Alex, even if the blame isn't given to Arbeloa from the fans, it's certainly put a whole lot more pressure on him now.
Yeah, I mean, that pressure was there already. Maybe it does increase a little bit more, but I'm not sure how much it can increase because it was already massive. This is one of the most high pressure jobs in world football. And talking about the players, it's going to be really interesting to see what changes we see in terms of what looks like their attitude on the pitch and their performance. We know that the names of the players who weren't happy with Xabi Alonso. We've talked about it, we've reported it, we've discussed it. Some of the big players in this team weren't happy. Yeah, that's gone now. He's gone and someone else has come in. Are we going to see a big uptick in performances from someone like Vinicius Junior? Well, tonight we didn't. He's one of the few sort of big names who stayed in the team and started this game, and he was poor. It is difficult for a player like that to go away from home to a lower tier side, maybe not the best pitch, but still, he was poor. And so, let's see how Vinicius Junior performs, for example, on Saturday against Levante, where we see a big improvement in his performance because the coach that we know that he wasn't that keen on has gone. So that's another big one to watch, I think.
You know Vinny's performance tonight?
Tell me.
It's got the look of, why am I here? And all the other ones are not. That's how he performed. He wasn't performing to say, right, I'm going to take this team on my shoulders. I'm going to make sure we win. And then I'm going to get goals and I'm going to get some glory. He's running around thinking, how come Bellingham sat back in his flat or wherever he is? How come I'm here? That's exactly how he played.
And hence why you won, and you said it, Stevie, you won togetherness. We're all in this together. It's a nightmare to come here and play, but we're in this nightmare together. We are suffering together. If indeed that's what it comes down to, suffering, which it shouldn't for Real Madrid against Albacete, and yet it did. But at the very least, you're doing this together. Now, on the subject of Vini Jr., you cannot tell me that Hefte Betancourt it outplays Vini Jr. And yet he did tonight. So yeah, Arbeloa obviously carries a lot of the burden here. But the players who, whether it's quietly or they've demonstrated that they were not in agreement with the decisions made by Xabi Alonso, today was the first impression for them too, in the post-Xabi Alonso era. Oh, that guy was the problem. It wasn't me. And what impression did they give? None. Zero. Poor.
This is early days, though, for Arbeloa. We know what Florentino Perez is like. There's not going to be a knee-jerk reaction, is there?
Well, look, never say never, because I didn't think Xabi Alonso would be sacked on Monday either. But no, look, Arbeloa, the club really believe in Arbeloa, and the president believes in Arbeloa. They've got a lot of faith in him. Zidane is one example of a reserve team coach who stepped up midway through the season when the previous coach failed, turned it around, and that turned out, in the best case scenario. Zidane won the Champions League and then won it twice more in the following seasons. Other times it hasn't worked out. We saw Santi Solari promoted at Real Madrid from the reserve team coach as well to take over mid-season when a coach hadn't worked out in Lopetegui. That didn't work. And Solari, didn't make it. I think he took over in October, lasted till March, didn't make it to the end of the season. So there are two recent examples there of coaches who've stepped in mid-season at Real Madrid. One worked out in the best possible way and another didn't. But no, in terms of Arbeloa, like I say, at the club, there is a lot of faith in him as a coach, even if he is, of course, totally unproven at the highest level.
Yes, well, we'll get another look at him, it would seem, on Saturday morning. Thank you, Alex, for being with us on this latest edition of ESPN FC. Make sure to set your alarms for Saturday morning because Real Madrid take on Levante at 8 a.m. for kickoff, but we will be with you with all the build-up and all the news and all the drama and gossip from 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Be sure to be with us for all the build-up. On Sunday, Real Sociedad will face Barcelona and Atleti will take on Alaves.